All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Because we care for one another's safety, our congregation is gathering online during this long season of coronavirus pandemic. Nevertheless, through the gifts of technology, we continue to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love. Arise, O souls, Good morning, and welcome to this online gathering of the All Souls Unitarian Universalist congregation in Kansas City in June of 2021. Happy Father's Day to those who are celebrating being fathers or having fathers. The physical and emotional labor of parenting is holy work, and as a spiritual path that calls us to learning and growth, even as we nurture the growth of our children. Today, let us offer honor and blessing to all who engage this task with faithful care. Today, we also lift up the celebration of Juneteenth among African American communities. As part of that observance, I am delighted to welcome back to our pulpit today our longtime friend, the Reverend Duncan Teague, minister of the Abundant Love UU congregation in Atlanta. He is one of my very esteemed colleagues, and I always find his outlook refreshing and his message inspiring. Duncan, thank you for being with us today and also for bringing a word from our mutual friend, Reverend Mykal Slack, and for sharing with us about your important work with the Abundant Love congregation and Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism on this significant holiday. Welcome.
Good morning, All Souls, Kansas City. It's a real joy to be with you again. I'm sorry that I'm not in my hometown again, but I will be someday soon. And I'll look forward to visiting with y'all. This morning, our words for gathering are about Juneteenth, even though I'm also wishing you a happy Pride month of June. But we're right after the Juneteenth celebrations all over the country, and so our words for gathering are about that. And I have help this morning in reading the words that Major General Granger read in Galveston, Texas, to the newly found out freed slaves. My friend, Reverend Mykal Slack.
Hello, All Souls. It is so good to see you, to know that I get to be in this moment with you today. I believe the last time and the only time I was at All Souls Kansas City was for Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism's first ever revival in April of 2018, which feels like forever ago. But I remember it fondly, and I'm so glad and so grateful that I get to be here with my friend and colleague, the good Reverend Duncan, as I share these words with you this morning, taken from General Order number 3. And I quote, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and free laborer," unquote.
It still feels good to hear that.
It does. It does.
I wish they meant it. Anyway, we also have some words this morning as we gather from a former slave's child. And so we have a first-hand account given by the child of their parent who was a slave, in this case, father. The 19th of June wasn't the exact day the Negro was freed, but that's the day they told them that they were free.
Yes.
And my daddy told me that they hooped and hollered and bored holes in trees with augers and stopped it up with gunpowder and lit, and that would be their blast for the celebration. This is by Hay Turner, a former slave.
The truth of the matter is that many folks celebrated that moment. And it is also true that many folks were not availed of that celebration. They didn't know about that moment at the time that it happened. But you know what? Whether your family celebrated Juneteenth or not, Juneteenth means something. It means something about what's possible. It means something about what folks might be capable of if they're willing to do some work. It means that our lives are worth celebrating and honoring. And so we do that in this moment. We do that in that celebration. May Juneteenth be a celebration that lives in all of us.
Yes.
Whenever we are called to celebrate life. And that should be every time, all the time.
Yes.
Yes.
In my thinking about Juneteenth, I have to be real honest with y'all. My mother's a Texan, and so she grew up with Juneteenth. And in the sermon, I'm going to tell you what happened with her experience of that as she married my father from Oklahoma, and they raised us in Kansas City. But in line with Mykal, I say we need a new Declaration of Freedom written by a commission of indigenous people.
Yes.
And contributed to by African Americans and all people of color who have been used to make America all that she is, while never being compensated,
That's right.
appreciated, or dignified with equality. That's what I feel we need for Juneteenth celebration on its 200th anniversary. Now, Mykal says I put that too far in the future, but on the 200th anniversary of Juneteenth in 2065, that's what I'd like. And I think that that declaration should be ratified by the Congress, should our nation's democracy survive. That's our words for gathering this morning. And I'm going to share our chalice lighting words from Abundant Love, written by Dawn Skeevy Cooley. And they are, we light our chalice this morning grateful for the love that we experience in this beloved community.
Yes.
May the flame light the way for all who seek such abundance. So may it be.
Ashe.
Now let's join together in speaking once again our covenant promises to this community. Together we affirm, goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour, our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
All Different Now, Juneteenth, the First Day of Freedom. Written by Angela Johnson, illustrated by E.B. Lewis. A literally cultured read aloud. A June morning breeze off the port blew the smell of honeysuckle past the fields, across the yard, and into our room to wake us. And nobody knew, as we ate a little, talked a little, and headed to the fields as the sun was rising, that soon it would be all different. Then we worked, and worked, and worked some more, under the hot Texas sun. Until word spread from the port to town, through the countryside, and into the fields, that a Union general had read from a balcony that we were all now and forever free, and things would be all different now. I watched as my Aunt Laura sang as she held her baby. Mr. Jake, who some say was 100, cried quietly. And a group of grown people bowed their heads and whispered things to each other I could not hear. My mama held my hand softly and looked beyond, as another breeze blew over and everything fell to a hush. But later, Papa, Mama, the aunts and uncles, and all of my cousins had an afternoon picnic by the water. My baby brother crawled around our blanket as we listened to the sounds of the waves. And as more people joined us, we ate as a free people, laughed as free people, and told stories as free people on into the night. What was before would be no more. As we walked back home, the cool of the night soothed our tired feet that padded quietly past the shadowy fields of cotton. And in the morning, the smell of honeysuckle will wake me again, beside my sisters and brother, to a time that will be, for all of us, all different now.
Hello, all souls. I'm Reverend Mykal Slack, Community Minister for Worship and Spiritual Care for Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. For folks who may not know, BLUU has been a truly life-giving and life-saving community and experience for Black people all across our faith since 2015. We offer regular online worship services, pastoral care, daily affirmations, opportunities for political education, as well as local and national organizing, children and youth programming, offerings of love and care both virtually and in person, including community-led workshops and book studies, Blue Havens, which are Black UU meetup groups, and BLUU Harbors, which are soon to be established Black UU spiritual communities. As part of our commitment to changing the material conditions of Black people all across the country and the world, BLUU's Northside Housing Cooperative Initiative is in full swing. This is a 2 to 3 year project to create and support the development of new, actually affordable, long-term housing that can help build wealth for 32 Black and Indigenous families, comprising 8 different cooperatives in North Minneapolis. We're also in the process of providing COVID relief grants to Black UUs who need the additional support during what has been a truly harrowing and at times horrifying year. There are wise ways of knowing, innovating, and living in the skin and bones of Black people. That we are still here is a testament to that fact. We draw inspiration, direction, and provocation from our ancestors, including Black Unitarians, Black Universalists, and Black Unitarian Universalists, who forged pathways at the intersection of faith and justice. We see in their lives not just a timeline of historical facts or incidents, but evidence and source material for our way of evaluating and thinking about living our faith. We are inspired by all they did with far less access to resources and information. So on their behalf, and on behalf of the organizing collective board of directors and staff, our advisory team and council of elders, our organizing team, Team Sankofa, and all the people who volunteer for BLUU and who call BLUU their spiritual home, I say thank you. Thank you for these gifts that will continue to grow us and our work, and thank you for your ongoing support. May all this love help us live more fully into our vision statement, which reminds us of the following. BLUU harnesses love's power to combat oppression and foster healing as a spiritual and political imperative. We know the power of love to be life-changing, inclusive, relational, uncomfortable, unconditional, and without end. Thanks again.
I was born by the river in a little tent, and oh, just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to the movies and I go downtown, but somebody keeps telling me, don't you hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I It's been a long time coming. But I know a change gonna come, yeah. Yes, it
Let's say together the words of dedication for our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
The reading today is from the 3rd chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search, and a time to give up. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to mend. A time to be silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven.
You've changed. That sparkle in your eyes is gone. Your smile is just a careless yawn. You're breaking my heart. You've changed. You've changed. Your kisses now are so blasé. You're bored with me in every way. I can't understand. You've changed. You've forgotten the words I love you. Each memory that we've shared. You ignore every cloud above you. I can't realize you ever cared. You've changed. You're not the angel I once knew. No need to tell me that we're through. It's all over now. You've changed. It's all over now. You've changed. You've changed.
Friends, it's a joy to be able to come to you from our backyard. And I wish that things were such that all of you could be here with a salad or dessert, and David and I could come up with some ribs and a vegetarian or two entree. And we all could enjoy the years of gardening that my husband David put into this backyard that you see. Thanks to his love of gardening, I have this like park. And I want to thank Reverend Dr. Gibbons for having me back, and the people responsible for worship for her wonderful invitation and welcome back. And it's also really good to reconnect with Anthony Edwards, and I hope he's behaving. It took a pandemic to keep me away, y'all. I still have dear family and friends in Kansas City, and as of yet, I haven't gotten on a plane yet, but it's coming. And the pandemic and some of the recent events were where we have gone for our readings and our theme, You've Changed. As much as we don't want to have change this much, and as much as we want to believe that the past year and a half are just one story of the many stories that make up our lives, individually and collectively, friends, the past 18 months, and for some much longer because they knew the truth of the pandemic, have been traumatizing. So much so that it culminates in really a 4+ year process of less than responsible, coherent, mature leadership from the White House. And all of that means that we have changed. Certainly, I will admit that I've changed. And as in our opening words, from not only the proclamation that freed the slaves, serving beyond the time that they were actually freed in Texas, but from the child of an enslaved father on that first Juneteenth, something had to change, and it indeed did. And we know now that Mr. Lincoln's proclamation did wonders, performed that miracle of ending the institution of formal slavery for most. But there were holdout states. And there's a time to set things free, and it has come. And before I could even get the whole sermon done, our entangled Congress, with all its faults, all its foibles, turned the anniversary of Juneteenth into a national holiday, and yes, we have changed. This has as much to do with the recognition of racial injustice and racial justice about the death of Mr. George Floyd and many others, and the racial uprising, as it has to do with ending the formal institution of slavery in America. And so I can say to America with a smile that you've changed. More work to be done, but you've changed. And the song that inspired my words today is a love song. And in that song, it has some resonance for many of us because we were in love with the ideas and the values that formed our core of our belief in our work lives, our society. And now for many of the more radical UUs, there are other songs, like What Has Love Got to Do with It? But you've changed the work. We believed in the value and the relationships we had to our jobs and our identity with our jobs and our companies, and if not our entire economic system, certainly with the way that if we put in the time and the energy and the effort, for most of us, we could be reasonably assured that we would be compensated. Not wholly appreciated, but somewhat valued. Then COVID-19 sent us all home. And we cleaned up the garage. We cleaned up the house, and in a few weeks, we were able to check in on our loved ones. At least that's what we believed. And we were going to get back to normal. But a few weeks passed. And we came to rely not upon the person at the very top of the power structure, because he seemed to be losing his grip on reality. We started looking toward a short man with a long history in public health who was being punished for telling us the truth about airborne viruses, Dr. Fauci. And they knew the virus was airborne. They knew. And the time dragged on past the point of us being comfortable in our homes, in our apartments, in our senior living complexes. And I'm not ashamed to tell you that this being stuck at home had some effects on me. And I needed help with not only my own lack of being able to go and do, but also with the losses that I was suffering. And I'm a bit of an extrovert, and I'm seeing a therapist, and it helps. And then there was the promise of the vaccine, and somehow or another, it brought out worse changes in our larger society. And we're still coping with folks who never wore a mask and don't want to be asked to wear one. And it did something to our change and our love of stability and of truth. And we started growing sick of the fixes that we had to get us through it, like Zoom, like Google Chat. And when will I be able to see my older relatives, if they have survived? And the things that don't ever change started to eat at us. The same groups that always get sick and stay sicker and die were doing that. And the leadership had nothing to offer. Our health and wealth and income gaps showed up like they always do, and no change was there. And we wanted the things our teachers and our historians told us, and some conservatives about our country and our exceptionalism, to be true finally. But we were dying like all the other countries who didn't have a vaccine. And all that has changed us, and it has changed me. Do you know that I know more of my neighbors after this year than I've learned in the 20 plus years that David and I have lived here? And I know that we've lived here more than 20 years because the women across the street and a couple of houses down adopted a little gorgeous girl when we first moved in. And now that couple is a widow and a grown daughter who's planning on moving to her first graduate position. And we lost the strong member of the couple, the one who looked really healthy, the one I talked to when I was headed on my walks to the park. And I don't think she died of COVID. Actually, I know she didn't. But I wonder how much health care was left for her after we treated the people with COVID. And in one incident, I know that we did lose someone who wasn't able to get the kind of help she needed. In the past, if I've preached any place more than twice, the people know how much and how sacred peach cobbler means to me. Well, you don't know that I grew to love peach cobbler because of my aunt Opal Faye, my mother's oldest sister. And at about 90, she was still making that peach cobbler in Kansas City, and I was trying my best to get the recipe. And Aunt Opal Faye was not having it. Well, she was here in Kansas City not too far, she was here too far away from her grown children in Arizona and in California. And Aunt Opal Faye made it to 96 years old. And I had dreams about singing for her one last time, sitting with the hundreds of relatives who would have been there, the many generations of her kids and grandkids, and enjoying one last thing of her peach cobbler made by one of her kids, hopefully. And it didn't happen. Aunt Opal Faye passed away right after the shutdown. And there was a few people allowed at the funeral, not even all her children. Only one or two of her grandchildren were able to attend, none of her great-grandchildren, and none of her great-great-grandchildren. And certainly not me, a nephew who was all the way in Atlanta and not about to get on a plane with no vaccine in sight. And so I had to say goodbye to my aunt over Zoom. And that isn't how we do things. So that changed. And so Aunt Opal Faye took her recipe with her, by the way. And something about freedom now so impresses us that we are now all celebrating Juneteenth. We have changed. And you see, my Texas mother grew up with Juneteenth and was so disappointed in the lack of recognition of it and our ignorance of it. She just informed us about how ignorant we were and that we didn't know enough. She didn't even explain it to us. And she was cool with the barbecue at the 4th of July, but she missed her celebration of our collective freedom as African Americans. And it's also interesting that, of course, Aunt Opal Faye grew up with Juneteenth too, and she never mentioned it. My father, I don't think, celebrated Juneteenth because he's from Muskogee, Oklahoma. And given the things that happened in Tulsa, I don't blame African Americans in Oklahoma for not celebrating Juneteenth. But we have a bit of freedom now to move about and to also exercise the skills that we've gained during the shutdown, even if we gain them reluctantly, like me. So are you sure you want to go back to the way it was before? If before was a time of not knowing, then that must change. And now feels like a time when we need to know that we are really free and that we must fight for it. That we have to work to keep our loved ones in safe, healthy states of being. The time is growing close enough for us to love those around us. And that time has changed. As my existentialist friends have tried to tell us over and over again, that now is the time for us to love each other, to care about each other, to get to know our neighbors. We have today to recognize the truth and tell the truth that will set someone else free. We have to do that work right now. A time for love is now. And we have changed. And some of it is good to me. And if I were there, and I thought you would be okay with it, I would do that healthy COVID-19 hug. It's safer than shaking hands. And have a time for us to be together. We have changed. We had to. And it's good. Happy Juneteenth. And be free. Thank you again for having me with you. And I look forward to when I'm back in your beautiful sanctuary right off the plaza. Our closing words are actually from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. A major step forward in recognizing the wrongs of the past when he called for the vote of Juneteenth as a federal holiday. But we must continue to work to ensure equal justice and fulfill the promise of the Emancipation Proclamation and our Constitution. So may it be. Have a wonderful week.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment. For all these we carry in our minds and hearts until the time shall come when we will be together again. Thank you, Reverend Duncan Teague, for that helpful message. And thanks to all of you for being here this morning to celebrate Juneteenth and the enduring promise of freedom. We invite you to join us now for informal conversation and fellowship in our Community Connection Zoom room. You can find that link here in the chat or at our All Souls website homepage. Don't forget to pick up your Sunday Plus meal later this afternoon if you ordered one, lovingly prepared by our own Demeter's group. Especially don't forget that next Sunday we will join UUs from all across the country at our National General Assembly worship service. Click the same link as usual from the website. It will connect you. And remember that the service begins a bit early for us at straight up 11 o'clock. After that, at 2 o'clock, grab your mask and come on over to church for our first in-person gathering since the pandemic began. We'll have root beer floats and brownie sundaes, as well as separate space and activities for the kids, all outdoors. I look forward to seeing you there next week. In the meantime, please, everyone, get those vaccinations taken care of. Take care, stay safe, and be well this week.